I never imagined that my son's fifth birthday party would become the day my entire family dynamic changed forever. Everything had been planned for weeks. Tyler adored dinosaurs, so I decided to make his dream cake myself instead of ordering one. I spent nearly 3 hours shaping every fondant scale by hand, layering rich chocolate ganache between the cake, and dusting the decorations with edible blue glitter that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight. It wasn't perfect, but when Tyler saw it, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning. That alone made every minute worth it. The backyard buzzed with laughter as children raced toward the bounce house while parents chatted over snacks and lemonade. It was exactly the kind of birthday I'd hoped my son would remember. Then Jessica arrived. As always, she made sure everyone noticed her entrance. She walked through the gate carrying an oversized gift wrapped in expensive paper, her designer sunglasses still on despite the shade. Before she'd even greeted Tyler, she had already criticized the decorations, questioned the party games, and complained that the bounce house looked cheap. I ignored her. After years of dealing with my older sister, I had learned that giving her attention only encouraged her behavior. Finally, it was time for the birthday cake. The children gathered around the table, singing loudly while Tyler bounced excitedly beside me. He tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, can we cut it now? I want everyone to have cake." I smiled, picked up the plastic knife, and placed it gently into the frosting. That's when Jessica exploded. "How dare you cut that cake without my son's permission?" Her voice sliced through the music so sharply that the entire backyard fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every child looked up. Even Tyler froze. I slowly turned toward her, still holding the knife. Jessica marched across the lawn, her heels sinking into the grass with every furious step. Her face burned with anger as she pointed directly at me. "You always think about yourself," she shouted. "Brayden is older than Tyler. He should have been allowed to cut the cake first. That's basic respect." I blinked, unsure I'd heard her correctly. "It's Tyler's birthday," I replied calmly. "He asked me to cut his cake so his friends could eat." Instead of calming down, she became even louder. "You're exactly like your mother," she snapped before adding words that made the entire yard go silent. "Selfish. Just like your dead mother." The sentence hung in the air like ice. Several parents exchanged shocked looks. One little girl quietly grabbed her mother's hand. Tyler stared at his aunt with frightened eyes, clearly too young to understand why an adult would scream during his birthday party. My fingers tightened around the knife, but I refused to give Jessica the reaction she wanted. Over the years, I'd learned that staying calm frustrated her far more than arguing ever could. Without saying another word, I reached into my pocket and unlocked my phone. Jessica continued yelling about respect, family traditions, and how I never appreciated my real family. While she talked, I typed a short message. Then I looked up and said quietly, "I'm just asking the trustee whether your monthly allowance should continue." The effect was immediate. Jessica's face lost every trace of color. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Around us, the guests looked back and forth between us, completely confused. Finally, she whispered, "What did you just say?" "What?" For a long moment, Jessica simply stared at me. The confidence she had walked into the party with vanished almost instantly, replaced by confusion and panic. "You can't be serious," she said, forcing out a nervous laugh. "You're bluffing." I slipped my phone back into my pocket. "Am I?" Before she could answer, her husband Mark hurried over, clearly embarrassed by the scene. "Jess," he said quietly, "maybe we should let it go. This is Tyler's birthday." She didn't even look at him. "Stay out of this," she snapped, her eyes never leaving mine. The uncomfortable silence spread through the backyard. Parents pretended to focus on their children, but I could hear their whispers. Did she really say that? I can't believe someone would act like this at a 5-year-old's birthday. That poor little boy. I refused to let Jessica steal another second of Tyler's special day. Clapping my hands together, I smiled at the children. "Who's ready for cake?" Within seconds, the kids rushed toward the table, their excitement quickly replacing the awkward tension. Tyler managed a small smile as I handed him the first slice, the dinosaur's head, exactly the piece he'd requested. Watching him laugh with his friends reminded me why I had stayed calm. This day belonged to him, not to Jessica. For the next 20 minutes, I chatted politely with the other parents, answered questions about the homemade cake, and helped refill juice boxes as though nothing had happened. But every time I looked across the yard, Jessica was still standing near the fence. She hadn't touched the food. She wasn't talking to anyone. She kept checking her phone, then looking at me with growing anxiety. Finally, my own phone vibrated. The message I had been waiting for had arrived. I glanced at the screen, read the short reply, and quietly excused myself from the conversation. Jessica noticed immediately. She crossed the yard in long, hurried steps and grabbed my arm before I reached the patio door. "We need to talk," she hissed. "Now." I calmly opened the sliding door and led her inside the house. The moment the door closed behind us, the cheerful sounds of the birthday party became distant. Jessica spun toward me. "What was that supposed to mean?" she demanded. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I folded my arms. "No, Jessica. You humiliated yourself." Her jaw tightened. "You know exactly what I mean." I nodded. "Yes." I asked the trustee a simple question. She stared at me. "What trustee?" "The one responsible for our mother's estate." Jessica laughed again, but this time the sound was forced. "Stop playing games. Mom's estate has always been managed by the lawyers." "No," I answered quietly. "You only assumed that." Her expression slowly changed. Confusion, suspicion, then fear. I unlocked my phone and opened the email that had arrived moments earlier. Without saying a word, I handed it to her. She scanned the message once, then again. Her hands began to shake. "This," she whispered. "This can't be real." "It is." She looked up at me. "You forged this." I gently took my phone back. "Jessica, Mom appointed me as trustee 2 months before she passed away." The room became completely silent. She stared at me as though she had never seen me before. "No, that's impossible." I met her eyes. "The trust contains $47 million. Our mother's investments, the rental properties, the stock portfolio, the beach house, everything. And for the last 3 years, I've personally approved every monthly payment you've received." Jessica slowly sank onto the living room sofa. Her designer handbag slipped from her shoulder and landed on the floor unnoticed. She looked completely stunned. "I've been receiving money from you?" "Not from me. From Mom. I've simply been carrying out her instructions." She shook her head repeatedly. "But the lawyers, they told us. They told you exactly what Mom wanted them to tell you." I paused. "You just never realized who the trustee actually was." Jessica sat motionless, staring at the floor as though everything she believed had collapsed in a single afternoon. After several long seconds, she finally looked up. "But how?" she whispered. "You work at a coffee shop, you drive that old Honda, you rent a small house, Mom always worried about your finances." A faint smile crossed my face. "I don't work at a coffee shop, Jessica. I own it." Her eyes widened. "I own the one on Main Street, the location near the university, and the new downtown cafe that opened a few months ago. Mom helped me write the business plan before she got sick. The trust funded the first store, and the business grew from there." She blinked repeatedly, trying to process what she had just heard. "So, you've been pretending to struggle?" "I've never pretended. I simply choose to live differently. My car still runs perfectly. My home is close to Tyler's school. And buying expensive things has never impressed me." I paused before continuing. "Being careful with money isn't the same as not having money." Jessica lowered her head. I know what you thought. You assumed appearances told the whole story." Silence settled over the room again. Finally, she asked the question that had clearly been bothering her. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her steadily. "Because Mom asked me not to." Those words hit harder than anything else I'd said. "What do you mean?" I unlocked my phone again and opened a scanned copy of our mother's handwritten letter. "I've read this hundreds of times. Today, I think you should read part of it too." Jessica accepted the phone with trembling hands. Her eyes moved slowly across the page. As she read, tears began filling her eyes. I quietly spoke the words our mother had written. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone." And Jessica has probably convinced herself that money belongs to the loudest voice in the room. Jessica swallowed hard. I continued. "She has always mistaken control for love and appearances for character. That is why I cannot trust her with unlimited access to this family's future." Her breathing became uneven. "My younger daughter has shown patience, responsibility, and compassion in ways that cannot be measured by bank accounts. She understands that wealth is a tool, not a reward." Jessica wiped at her eyes. I turned to the final paragraph. If Jessica ever forgets what family truly means, let her discover that the sister she underestimated is the one protecting everything I built. Perhaps then she will finally understand that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. The room fell silent. Jessica slowly lowered the phone into her lap. She knew, she whispered. I nodded. She saw everything. The comments, the favoritism, the constant insults. She never ignored them. Jessica covered her face with both hands. I thought Mom agreed with me. No. She loved you. But loving someone doesn't mean pretending they're right. For the first time since the party began, Jessica wasn't angry. She looked broken. After several minutes, she finally managed to ask the question she had been avoiding. What happens now? I took a slow breath. That depends on you. The trustee is waiting for my decision. I can continue your monthly payments. I can reduce them. Or I can stop them completely. Her eyes shot toward me in panic. You wouldn't! I held her gaze without raising my voice. Jessica, I've quietly protected your family for 3 years. I've increased your allowance when Mark's business started failing. I've approved emergency expenses you never even knew or questioned. I've done all of that because you're my sister. But I will never allow anyone, including you, to humiliate my son or insult our mother's memory again. Every word landed with unmistakable weight. Jessica slowly nodded, for the first time in years. She had nothing left to argue with. Well, Jessica sat quietly for a long time before finally speaking. I'm sorry. The words were barely louder than a whisper. I know saying that doesn't erase what happened today, but I truly am sorry. I looked at her calmly. Are you sorry because you hurt me? Or because you just discovered who controls the trust? She lowered her eyes. For several seconds, she couldn't answer. Then she took a deep breath. At first, I was terrified about the money. She paused. But after reading Mom's letter, I realized something much worse. I became the person she feared I would become. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I embarrassed Tyler. I insulted you. And I used Mom's memory as a weapon. There isn't any excuse for that. For the first time in years, her apology sounded honest. I nodded slowly. I appreciate you admitting it. But trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with choices. She understood exactly what I meant. Without another argument, she stood and picked up her purse. I'll tell everyone Brayden isn't feeling well, she said quietly. Good. And Jessica, she stopped at the doorway. This disagreement is between us. Never let the children carry the weight of adult mistakes. She gave a small nod. They won't. A few minutes later, she returned to the backyard with Mark and Brayden. She apologized to the guests for leaving early, explaining that Brayden had started feeling sick. No one challenged the story. Most of the parents simply smiled politely. As they walked toward the gate, Brayden turned and waved enthusiastically at Tyler. Happy birthday! Tyler smiled and waved back. See you at school. Watching the boys reminded me that children rarely inherit conflict. Adults teach it. The moment the gate closed, the atmosphere changed completely. Music filled the backyard once again. Children rushed toward the piñata, laughing as candy scattered across the grass. Parents relaxed, conversations returned, and Tyler finally looked like a 5-year-old celebrating his birthday instead of a little boy caught in the middle of a family argument. That evening, after the last guest had gone home, Tyler fell asleep on the couch surrounded by dinosaur toys and colorful wrapping paper. Chocolate frosting still covered one corner of his smile. I gently pulled a blanket over him before walking outside to clean the backyard. Half-empty cups, torn balloons, paper plates, and the remains of the dinosaur cake were scattered everywhere. It looked messy, but peaceful. Just then, my phone vibrated. A message from the trustee. Should Jessica's monthly distribution remain unchanged? I smiled faintly before typing my reply. Continue the current payments. Monitor the account and notify me only if unusual requests arise. The response came almost immediately. Understood. Your mother would be proud of the wisdom you've shown. I slipped my phone into my pocket and looked toward the family photo hanging inside the living room. Mom was holding newborn Tyler in the hospital. She looked exhausted from her illness, yet her smile radiated warmth. Even knowing she didn't have much time left, she had spent her final months protecting the people she loved. The inheritance she left behind wasn't simply wealth. It was security. It was responsibility. And most importantly, It was a lesson. Money can buy comfort, but it can never replace character. A few minutes later, another notification appeared. This time it was from Jessica. I'm truly sorry for what I said about you, for disrespecting Mom, and for ruining Tyler's birthday. I know forgiveness will take time, but I hope one day I can earn it. I read the message twice before replying. Thank you for taking responsibility. Healing begins with honesty. Tyler and Brayden deserve to grow up as cousins, not enemies. Let's make sure they do, she answered almost immediately. I will. As the sun disappeared beyond the trees, golden light settled across the quiet backyard. Inside, Tyler slept peacefully, clutching his favorite toy dinosaur against his chest. He knew nothing about trusts, inheritances, or family power struggles, and I intended to keep it that way for as long as possible. Because real family isn't defined by money, status, or who believes they deserve control. Real family protects. Real family forgives when forgiveness is earned, and real love stays gentle until the moment it must become strong. That was the greatest gift my mother ever left us, not the fortune, the wisdom to use it well.